Hello, y'all. Chris Huffman here, coming to you from the trenches again with another common sense lesson. So, two places we're coming from. When I say I'm coming from the trenches, that means that I'm fighting the battles as a coach, as a man, as a minister, crawling out of the pits of the mistakes I've made, stepping into God's calling and His vision for my life, knowing what He's called me to, business-wise, monetarily-wise, family-wise, ministry-wise, and doing the work before I see the results He's called me to, that He's promised is going to happen. See, a lot of coaches out there, and I'm for them. I follow 3 or 4 of them. They're coming from the place of success. They've already achieved this success, and now they're coaching. And I get that. And I'm going to be there someday. But I want there to be a coach out there, and I want you to look at me and say, this guy was coaching us through the hard times, through the bad times, when he was dealing it with himself, when he was dealing with divorce and standing for his marriage and winning his wife back. He was dealing with being broke, being negative in his account. He was living like that and still helping us, coach us, guide us through those hard times. He was homeless. I mean, he had shelter, he had protection, but he was technically homeless. And he still kept fighting. That's what I want to be. Because we're all going to go through hard times. That is God's way. We're going to go through times where we look like absolute fools. Absolute failures. And nobody wants anything to do with us. They think we're morons, and okay. And you got to get to the point where you know you are what God wants you to be. You're doing what He wants you to do. You're right where He wants you. And keep sowing the seed. Keep adding seeds to the calling He's already given you. He is in the process of making you the man that's going to be able to fulfill the calling He has on your life. You're not that man yet. And it's hard. It's a pain in the butt. I shed a lot of tears, at least still weekly. I cry in some form or fashion on a weekly basis. And every once in a while, I'll even throw up a video out there of me crying and struggling, because I want you guys to know it's real. But you got to keep sowing the seed. So that's what I mean from the trenches. What I mean common sense is common sense without disclosure statements. We're going to teach and preach and practice common sense. And we're not going to leave disclosure statements. We're not going to leave medical statements. We're not going to make disclosure lawyer statements. We're going to just practice common sense. I'm not going to make any promises or what. I don't know you. All I can tell you that if you put into practice, at least in a little bit, the stuff that I'm teaching you, you'll start having some level of success. If you don't, you won't. Okay? I'm talking about diet a little bit today. I'm not going to tell you to talk to your doctor. I'm not going to tell you to talk to your gym trainer. Practice common sense. I'm going to tell you what I've learned, what I've put into practice, what I believe the Bible teaches about things, and I'm just going to live on that plane of common sense. So common sense today, for me, with the idea of diet. I'm not a health guru, and I really have no intention of being one. That's not part of what I believe my calling is. But I believe part of my calling is being a healthy individual and having the ability and the practice of taking care of my body with some level of success. Taking care of this temple that God has given me to live in. Simply, but taking care of it. Not worrying about, This is common sense. We don't have to have 4% body fat. We don't have to have 10% body fat. Okay? But if you're doing anything halfway right, you're probably going to land somewhere between 12 and 20% body fat. And if you're working out a little bit, I like to keep it simple. But it does take some effort. But today's is about diet. And here's what I mean. There's all kinds of diets out there, all kinds of fads out there, all kinds of lies out there, and a lot of vanity. So one, don't let vanity be your guide. I mean, I'm serious as a heart attack. Quit worrying about what anybody thinks about you. I'm telling you, the only person we ought to really care about who thinks about our body, of course, is God, but our spouse. And I ain't got no desire to impress any floozy woman at all. I mean, good or bad woman. I don't care. Only woman I want to impress is my wife. And we're currently divorced, and I'm still standing for the marriage. She's the only one I care about impressing. Okay? Quit being vain. Quit trying to please the world. My language. Quit walking around with your shirts off. But take care of your body. Lift some heavy weight every once in a while. A couple times a week. Lift some heavy weight. A few times. Lift some smaller weights a lot of times. Get some kind of supplements in you, even if it's just taking a green powder every day. Take a green powder every day. Start doing these simple things. And look at your diet. And here's the main point I want to talk about with this diet today. Common sense. You got guys out there that'll say, and we've heard it for years, eggs is bad. And I'm telling you, there's almost anything that the government puts out in mass production is a lie. And they propagated that eggs lie years ago, and there's finally the last at least 5 years, it seems like eggs are having a comeback, and people are realizing the benefits of that. And it's been proven. You have to look this stuff up yourself. You got to study it yourself. That there's certain, I'm going to say enzymes. I don't know what that is, but certain proteins, I believe, in eggs that you're only going to get from eggs. And they stimulate a certain part of the brain. And it's been proven that like Alzheimer's and dementia are connected to no eggs in their diet. And there's one particular doctor I know about with his patients. They were put in institutions for dementia and Alzheimer's, and he recognized their diet as no eggs. He put them on a strict diet of eggs, all kinds of eggs. And within 2 to 4 months, the dementia and the Alzheimer's was gone, or at least marked improvement. But here again, they'll say things like that. This is the first time I heard this about 2 weeks ago. There's one guy down in honey. Honey's bad for you. I heard one guy say milk's bad for you. God didn't make you. He didn't even refer to God, but I don't think he did. But he said if God wanted you to drink cow's milk, he'd have you sucking it straight from the tit. That's not for us. And people say dairy's bad. People say cheese is bad. People say meat is bad. We're going to do it God's way, and we're going to practice some common sense. 1, God made animals, and he made food. He made plants and animals. He made fruits and vegetables for us to consume. From the very beginning, that's how he made it. And at the very beginning, there was no unclean animal, and there was no eating of animals. Okay, nobody ate meat. All right. But that all changed, and our body changed, and we have to eat certain things. We have to get the protein and what we need in our bodies. That's why the vegan diet is not right. Vegetarian diet is not right. It's not good. And we can say that's how God made us in the beginning. Yes, He did, but our bodies are no longer perfect. And most of the time, there's some sort of emotional attachment to these decisions. Not logical and not thought through. Or at least thought through at a certain level, but not looking at every possible thing. See, if you come from the standpoint of God and His Word, you alleviate all of that human inconsistency. So after the fall, certain animals became unclean. And that's still true today. Those unclean animals that were unclean back then, that Orthodox Jews still practice today, are still unclean. They're unclean animals. You know, catfish, shrimp, scavengers of the sea, pork. Okay, they are dirty animals. And if you have a diet strictly of those animals, you will get sick eventually. They do have a negative effect on your body. But God also made it clear in the New Testament that we can eat whatever we want. He has given us the liberty to eat. So since He's created it and He's given us the liberty to eat it, then we pretty much eat it. And so He gave us meat to eat. He gave us certain vegetables to eat. He gave us dairy to eat. He gave us honey to eat. He specifically talks about how good milk is for you, how good dairy is for you, and ultimately how good butter is for you. So we want to practice common sense and start thinking about, let's just stop poo-pooing on all this food, and let's start looking at the reality of it. And I think most importantly, looking at how we're preparing the food, how we're growing the food. A lot of people say they're lactose intolerant. It really has got nothing to do with the dairy products. It's got to do with how the dairy products is processed. And start trying to get back to a healthy way of living, buying organic food, growing your own stuff, and practicing some common sense. Hey, this is Coach Huffman coming to you from the trenches with some common sense. If anything we say resonates with you and you want to enter into further coaching, one of our programs, everything here is free. I try to give good content, but if you want to go further in your life and your success, we've got various programs and various books. Just like and subscribe, make comments, put your phone numbers, emails out there, and hey, we'll reach back out to you and see what we can do to help. In the meantime, always keep your eyes on Him.